Okay, so I have a function, right? And I only pass two parameters, A and B, but I did not pass C. And because of that, what happens? A and B are the numbers that I pass, 1 and 2, because it looks at the order. C and D are not present, right? That means it's going to be undefined. But then the return, it gives me NaN. NaN means not a number, which means it doesn't know how to calculate this, right? Because you can only add numbers. But here, undefined is not a number. So it's trying to add apple and orange, and it doesn't know what to do. If you have two apples, I can say two apples. But if I have an apple and orange, I cannot give you one answer, right? So you need to convert both to an apple or both to an orange, right? So in that case, there is something called default parameter. Default parameter is, which means if I don't pass the value, set some default value. So if it's undefined, you can just put something like this. This is called default parameters. Okay. And what this does is it now, if I console log this, console log A, B, C, D, you would see it's 1, 2, 0, 0. Because 0, 0, which means if it's not available, set it to 0. That's called default parameter, right? If it's available, just take the value. So for AB, the value is available. So it sets the value. But for CD, the value is not available. So it sets the default, which is 0. Right? So this is very useful. So you can protect your function for this kind of mistakes, right? What if I want to pass, if I have only C and D, I don't have AB. How do I pass only C and D? Any idea? Always think of something, whatever comes in your head, I think it's usually the right answer. So think of something. Come on, think of something. Try it out. How about try it out and see what happens? You cannot do add C and D. Yeah. If you do add C and D, because remember, it's based on order, which means it will only took the first one is going to be A, the second one is going to be B, right? So yeah, add C. Yeah, so without changing the function. Okay, you don't want to change the function. So I don't want to change the structure of the function. I still want 4 arguments here. But when I pass, let's say, I want to pass this one. Let's say the C, I want to pass. Let's say I want to pass C as a. I'm just gonna say here. Let's say I want to pass C equal to 4, and D equal to 5, right? So this is 4 and this is 5. But if I just do 4, 5 here, right? Then 4 becomes A, 5 becomes B, right? I know I have to pass something here, first 2 for AB. right? So yeah, you can do 0, 0. Yeah, you can do 0, 0, right? This way, you are passing the right order. In this case, it doesn't matter because it just adds all the number. But there are cases where, C has a different meaning and D has a different meaning. So, it will change the meaning of it, right? But yeah, you can pass 0, 0, or you can pass something called like null, something like that as well. Okay. But yeah, I think in this specific case, 0, 0 should work as well. Okay. So yeah, that's how it works. So the default parameter is a very handy, it protects your function from getting into some weird values. Okay. All right. So let's do something else. Now that we have looked at the function, this is called function expression. So function add a b, it's called function expression. No, sorry, function declaration, my bad. Function declaration. But there is another way to create a function, which is something called something like this. I can do it just as a variable. Let's say, how you define a variable, right? If I want to say add equal to 1, I define it like this, right? Instead, I'm just going to do function AB. And this is called function expression. Right? So what I've done here is this function is actually called nameless function because it doesn't have a name. So I'm setting a value to it, right? So the reason I'm showing you is that if you have a function as a variable, I can pass it as a variable to other things, right? Which is very useful. We're going to look at the example how it's going to be useful, right? So this is a function declaration. This is a function expression. They both do the same thing pretty much. They have syntactically, it's a little different. Okay. There's another function. There's another kind of a function which is very interesting. This is a short form of function. It's called arrow function. Arrow function is nothing but a function expression's short version. So you take this function, let's say, okay, and then you would say, you know what? I'm just going to remove the keyword function from here. Okay. And then I'm going to put arrow here. So this means a function. It is kind of weird, but once you use it, you'll get used to it. And then, if it's an add, then, you'll return, obviously, a plus b, right? However, in this case, if you're returning only one thing, you can actually skip the return function and you can simply do this. Because there's a function expression, you can do this, which is pretty cool. This reads well. So you can say add equal to, I pass AB and it returns, you see the arrow, supposed to be, this is an input. So let's say if you have a assembly line, right? You pass two things and you get one out of it. So the arrow function is almost like I input this and I get this output, right? So you can remember it like this. So it's a cool, short way of the write function. Okay. And you're going to be seeing this a lot, where we can actually pass things inside another function. Any questions? Okay. Now that we have, understood like 3 different kind of functions, we will now move to something called callback function. And this is where we're going to use all of this callback function. And callback functions are pretty cool. Let's say, if I want to build a sort of like a calculator, right? I want to have one function. Let's say one function can do, sum or multiplication or subtraction, so on and so forth, anything, right? How is it possible that one function can take multiple forms? So for that, there is a cool method called callback function. So the way to write is you would write a function. Let's say I'm going to call it calculate. Okay. This calculate function, it's a generic calculate function. It can do anything. It can do addition. It can do subtraction, right? So if I just pass A and B, I don't know what to do with this A because I don't know what kind of calculation it's going to do. Is it going to do A plus B or A minus B? I don't know. So I have to actually tell this function that do this, right? I want you to calculate. I want to add, or I want to subtract, or I want to do both, right? So how do we achieve that? So for that, we will actually pass an arrow function inside that has ability to add or subtract. So we are going to create another function. Remember arrow function, call add. So I can say let add equal to, remember that syntax, AB goes in, comes out A plus B, right? This is our arrow function, which says whatever we pass in, return is going to be the sum of those 2 parameters. So in order to calculate, let's use a different term, N1, N2 or something like that, N1, N2. So that makes much more sense. So along with N1, N2, we are going to pass, and it could be first argument or last argument. It doesn't matter. We're going to pass a function called let's call it do, I don't know how to call this. I'm just going to call it callback for now. Callback function, right? So this is a number. This is a number, but this actually is a callback function, which means I can pass add as it. So let's say if I want to use this, I can say calculate, and then I can say add 1 and 2. Okay. So the callback, which is the first argument, remember functions always, if you pass something, add inside this function becomes callback. 1 becomes N1 and 2 becomes N2. And I can actually see it if I just simply console log callback N1 and N2, right? So yeah, you can see that the first one is the callback function, right? Second argument is 1, and the third argument is 2, which is clear, right? So inside I have three things. I have a recipe in a way, that I have a add function, then 2 numbers. All I have to do if I want to really, and I know what add function does, right? Add function, if I pass 2 things, it returns it, right? So all I have to do is let total equal to, since I already know the callback function is nothing but the add function, I can say callback and then just pass n1 and n2, right? And then if I return total, this should give me the sum of both, right? I know it may look a little bit complex, but once you understand it, it's pretty neat. So if I just do console log this, you can see it's giving me 3, right? Let's create another function. Let's call it mult, which will multiply. So I can have A, B, and A multiply by B, right? So now instead of add, I'm just going to pass this multiply. And then it's going to do 2 multiplied by 1. I'm going to get 2 here. So now I have a function called calculate, which behaves generic. It says, give me the method to calculate and give me those numbers, and I'll calculate things for you. This is actually a very useful functionality. This is a small example, so you may not visualize it like how it's going to be useful, but as we go further, you can see that this is such a powerful method, right? You know, instead of having rigidly call something, I can pass the functionality inside. For example, when on HTML page, when I click on a button, let's say if I'm on a Instagram or something, right? And I click on the button saying, you know, add a friend or something, right? In that case, what happens is that you may have a click function. You may have a click function, and you don't want to in advance, because click function can do a lot of different things, right? One button can be adding a friend, one button could be removing a friend. So I don't really want to define click function as a fixed function. I can define that functionality outside. So I can say, let add a friend, right, equal to something, right? I don't know, whatever that would be. And then I can have a remove a friend, right, equal to something, whatever that would be, right? And then I can just pass that functionality into click. And then the second argument is going to be friend, whichever friend I am, right, passing, right? So this, I can build this functionality, and when I click on it, it does it. So I can build, you know, things a bit abstract, which is very powerful, right? Because this is abstract. This calculate function is abstract. It doesn't really implement anything fixed. Okay. Any question on this one? All right, I'm just gonna put this in the chat so you guys can play around with it. Okay, so now let's write another function. So when you call this, so you can use the existing calculate function, but when you call it, I want you to call it something like this. The function name is going to I don't care. Okay. And if you pass this function, you need to create this callback function, right? Like what you created, add and multiply. But when you do it like this, it should return you here. It should return this. It says it would return a string calling, here are your two numbers, 1 and 2. I don't care. Okay. So let's build this function called I don't care. It just returns a string instead of summation or multiplication. Okay. Any question before you get started? I'll give you a few minutes to do this. This will be a good example for you to understand how it actually works. Okay. I'm going to get some water and I'll be back. Let me give you, how about once you finish, just put in a chat that you're done and I will know. Okay. I'll be back. All right. Anyone with success? Anyone is confused in terms of what to do? Okay, fire away. What is the question?
Hi, yeah, I guess I'm not understanding what callback is. Is that just like a placeholder for whatever you want to put in there, like that's a phrase or
Yeah. So in a way, I created. So yeah, that's a good question. I created this function. I call it. It's a lot more like an abstract function, right? Calculate is a very abstract word, right? Um, Typically, if it's a add function, for example, here, right? Add function has clear understanding. I'm gonna pass this two things, and it's gonna return the sum of those two things, right? It has a clear objective. Calculate does not have a clear objective. Calculate says, you give me the function that you want to use on the numbers that you want to use, right? So the first argument is the function, which is could be any function, right? And then the two arguments are the two numbers. So inside, it's doing exactly the same thing, like how I would call add function. So this is actually, let's say if I pass as an add function here, then this would be add, and then 1, 2 would be 1, 2 here, right? Because if you know that this is matches here, the first argument is first, second is second, third is third, which means callback is nothing but, let's say, this I don't care function, which I haven't built yet. So I would build something called I don't care function. It takes two numbers, right? And it does something. So that's what I want you to build, whatever it does. And it ultimately returns this basically, right? How it does it, you decide. So I want you to build this part here, which ultimately returns this instead of, like just a regular summation. It is a little harder concept to grasp in the beginning, but once you have a clear idea, it will become like a second nature. Those who don't understand this, let's build, just like how you have multiplication, build a function called division, called, or subtraction, let's say. Just call it sub, right? Build a function called sub, and then this would be, if I call it sub, this should return 1 minus 2, right? Which would be -1. How about that? Build that one. Once you build that, you'll get an idea how to build the I don't care function. For subtraction, all you have to do is create another function. I'm going to call it sub, right? Which takes, okay, which takes A and B, and all it does is say A minus B, right? So this is my subtraction function. And if I pass into the calculate, right? I'm just going to console log this first because I haven't built this I don't care function. Sorry, this is supposed to be. I haven't built this function right yet. So now I get -1, right? If I want to build I don't care, then I would just say I don't care, right? Equal to A and B. And then the way I would use it, I would just copy this whole string here, right? And instead of 1 and 2, I can do something like this. I can break the string and say plus A plus, because I need to add strings and numbers, right? Then B plus this, right? And then if I do this, then it would say, here are your two numbers. Well, I just need a little space here. I don't care, right? I just substituted the 1 and 2 with this. I think one of the first class we learned about how to add numbers and string together, right? So this is how you do it. Any questions? I know this is a little bit difficult or a little bit confusing. You're not going to be building a lot of these callback function. The reason I want you to show how it works is I want you to get an idea of how it works, right? So that when you're not going to build it, you're not going to build the calculate function. You only are going to build these functions, right? Which allow you to pass this into whichever function as a callback, and then you can calculate, right? So let me paste this in the chat. Okay, don't worry if you didn't get the whole concept. Okay, I'm gonna give you another one now. We kind of got the idea of how it works, right? You have some function which is very abstract. It doesn't know what to do, and then you provide the functionality of what to do and the values, right? See, in the regular function, you just pass the values because the functionality is defined inside the body of the function, right? But the abstract function doesn't know how to deal with that. So you need to pass the functionality and the numbers, and it will basically calculate it. Okay. A great example of this would be how to use this. Okay. And this is where the power of callback function comes in. JavaScript has some built-in callback functions. And this ability allows them to do some of the most powerful things. For example, there are three functions. One is called map, filter, and reduce. Okay. The objective was to learn this function. Map function basically allows you to use an array and transform this array into something else. For example, let's say if you have an array, I'm going to call it nums equal to 1, 2, 3, right? What I wanted to do is I want to double the every single value, right, of this array. So the resulting array should be 2, 4, and 6, right? 1, 2, 3 becomes 2, 4, 6. It doubles every value. How can I achieve this, right? What I have to do is I have to iterate through every single value. I have to iterate through every single value and double it. Right? So what if next time I want to do something where I can instead of double, I can do 4 times, right? I don't want to write another function call, do it 4 times. Because all I need to do is I need to double something. So what if I create a function called double, which takes let's say a number, and then it doubles that number. It's a callback function, right? Which takes a number and it doubles a number, right? So this is a callback function. Now, I can apply this. So if I use this function, for example, if I do console log double, and if I pass 1, it would return 2, right? So if I pass 1, it would return 2. If I pass 2, it would return 4, and then so on and so forth, right? But I'm not interested in just passing one number, and I need to do for this whole array, right? So for that, JavaScript has a function, a generic function, an abstract function called map. Map, the idea of mapping is mapping an array to something else, right? So the way it works is pretty cool. So I would say nums dot map. And all I have to do is pass a callback function, a way to map this, right? And the way to map is double. That's it. What this does, it tells the array that I have an array. I need to map it to double, which means it doubles everything in the array. So if I say let double array or double nums equal to this, right? And if I console log the double nums, no, if I console log the double nums, it would give me 2, 4, 6. See how cool this is? You just say map, which inside it just mapping everything to, all you have to pass is double, which is this function. If I say 4 times, let's say half equal to n multiplied by half is 0.5, right? Multiplied by n, right? So I can create another called half nums equal to nums dot map half. And if I console log half nums, it will be 0.5, 1, and 1.5, right? Because it divides it by 2, which is 0.5, divide this by 2, which is 1, and this divide this by 2. Okay, so this is pretty useful. Let me put this. And then I want you to build a function that does this. Square nums. Is that a right spelling? Square. Yeah. You get the idea. AR square. SQUARE. Right? So I want you to build this function called square, and it would return me ultimately 1, 4, and 9, right? Square of 1 is 4. Square of 1 is 1. Square of 2 is 4. Square of 3 is 9, right? So can you build me a function that does this called square? Any questions? If you're confused, let me know. I can help you. But if you don't ask, I would not know. How did I? Oh, I think let me put this in the chat. You need to build a square function. I think these should be pretty simple, just like a one-line code, right? Okay. I'll give you this one, and then maybe next one you guys can do. So you have a square, right? So the idea is let square equal to, sorry, square, yeah, equal to, then you would do n, and square is nothing but multiplying by the same number, right? Multiply by n, that's it, right? So 1 multiplied by 1 is 1, 2 multiplied by 2 is 4, 3 multiplied by 3 is 9. That's all you have to do. And if I just console log this, console log square numbers, it will give me yep, the same, yeah. Yep, that's correct. No, yeah, that's fine. Yeah. Let me give you another one. How about this? Now that you got some idea, I'm gonna give you um, another one. Let's just clean this up so we don't you know, confuse you. So I'm just gonna keep one of them like double, for example, here. And then I'm just gonna remove everything else. Right? Okay. Let's build something where I'm gonna call it cube. Okay, cube. Is it a cube? Yeah, cube. Let's do cube. Anyone know what a cube is? Cube is a three-dimensional, right? Yeah, exponent of 3, right? Exactly. So all you need to do is you need to build this function called cube, and let cube nums equal to nums dot map cube. When you do this, it should return cube is like 1 multiplied by 1 multiplied by 1, right? Which should give you 1. 2 multiplied by 2 multiplied by 2 is 8, right? And then 27. 3 multiplied by 3 multiplied by 3 is then 27. So let's build this function called cube. We want to build something similar to this. Remember, callback error functions are pretty neat, right? You know what's going in and what's coming out. You pass n, it gives you double the n, right? Similarly, you want to pass n, and you want to get the cube of n, right? That's it. If you print this, and if you're getting 1, 8, and 27, you know that you got it right. All right. Yep. Yeah, that is correct. Cube is nothing but same number multiply 3 times, right? Which means n multiplied by n multiplied by n. That's a cube, right? And you can do it pretty much. Now you know the power of this map function, right? You pass some array, and it gives you something else. Let's say if I've given a number of let's say these are number of radiuses, 1, 2, 3, and I want to find the circumference of all of these radiuses. So circumference is basically 2 pi r, right? To multiply by, pi. I'm just going to say pi here, and the radius, right? So I've given the radius, which means all I have to build is, I'm going to call it circumference, which is CIR, equal to n, and then 2 multiply by pi is what, 3.14, multiply by n. N is the r, right? Because these are the radiuses. Okay, and if I just simply console log nums dot map, and I'm just going to pass CIR inside, and this should give me, all the circumferences of these 3 circles, right? It's such a, such a simple one. So now that we know map function, there is another function which is called filter, which is pretty interesting. So filter, what it does is it lets you remove things from the array. Okay, so map, you get 1, 2, 3, and it returns, let's say, 2, 4, 6, right? But if you look at the number of elements are the same. I pass 3 elements, I'm getting 3 elements back. So I'm mapping, element to element, right? Filter says, I want to remove some stuff from it. So I can pass 1, 2, 3, and I can get 1 and 3. 2 is removed, right? I should be able to remove something based on some criteria. And I can define the criteria as a callback function. Okay, so this is the fundamentals of map and filter. So let's say if I want to remove 2, okay, from here, all I have to do is console log nums dot filter, and then inside I will pass that function that filters that. So I'm going to create a function here called let remove or filter 2. I don't know, I'm just come up with a name here. And what this does, it takes a number, and then it decides if this number is not 2, right? Which means if n is not, if n is not equal to 2, then it will let it pass. Everything else gets filtered out. It's kind of interesting, right? So previously in a map function, we are doubling n, or here we are making a decision. Filtering is making a decision. Do I want to keep n, this particular n, or not? Because remember, callback function, this is operated on every single value. So let's say first it gets 1. So n is 1, and it checks, is n not equal to 2? If this is true, then let it go. Means don't filter out. If true, don't filter, right? If it's true here, so 2 is not equal to 2, which is false. It will filter it out. So if I simply do this, filter 2, this should give me 1 and 3, right? Oh, sorry, TW. Oh. Right? It gives me 1 and 3. So in this callback function is actually making a decision instead of transforming something, right? And you can test this out. For example, if I want to test this out manually, what I would do is I would console log filter 2, and I would pass first value 1. What happens? Okay, see what happens. It says true, which means let it pass. Okay, then I'm gonna say 2. It says false, don't pass, right? Which was filtered out. If I say 3, true, which would pass, right? So this operates on individual value. This operates on the entire array with this callback function. Okay. Any question on this one? Okay. Let's look at an example here. I want you to build a callback function called filter 5. Okay. And this, if I have, like, this is the array. Okay. At the end of it, if I filtered 5, right, this should give me 1, 2, and 3, because it filters out 5. Now my array is different, right? So I want you to build this function that just remove filters. Well, I'm just going to keep the filter 2 from as a reference here. I'm going to put this in the chat. So I want you to build a filter called filter 5, which filters. Oh, sorry, actually. Let me, yeah, this is the one. Other one had an issue. Yeah. Let's build filter 5. Come on, this is easy. If you can if you can filter 2, you can filter 5. It's pretty simple. See, you're using this concept. You're not actually building this callback and everything, right? Which is pretty neat. Because you're going to be doing a lot of, like when you build a game and things like that, right? You may have some arrays where you want to do a kind of filter stuff out from the array and things like that, right? This will definitely help you build all of that. So I would highly recommend you guys to, learn out of that. Okay. So yeah, filter 5 is all you have to do is change this to 5, right? Because if it's not equal to 5, filter it out. Okay. What if I want to do completely opposite? I only want to keep 5, but want to filter out everything else. Let's call this function keep 5. How would you build this? Okay. And if I do this, all I would get is 5 and 5. And let me make this problem a little bit harder. Okay, so there are 1, 2, 3 5s, which means I will get 3 5s. Let me give you this. Oh, sorry, not this keep 5, my bad. I want you to build a function called keep 5 that takes n and it does something. You decide what it needs to do. Okay. You decide what it needs to do. If you don't understand, I would literally try stuff out, see what it prints, right? Trial and error often leads to good experience or good understanding, right? If you don't try, you're not going to get the results. So you have to try stuff out. Yeah, see, actually getting some of this, once you get it, it's like a light bulb goes in your head, right? That's the stage you want to get, right? So it's great that, when you try something, it works. And then see, most of the time what happens, if something doesn't work, people get frustrated that, oh, I don't know how to do this. The best thing to do is try something and see what the result is. If it doesn't work out as you expected, then say, okay, why does it do this, right? And then you change it, and then something else, and then you ultimately you reach to what you really wanted to do, right? So in this example, I have all these numbers. I don't want to, ideally, if I do this way, then I have to filter out 1, 2, 3, 4, all of these out, right? Instead, I can say only keep uh only keep 5, right? Then I would say n equal to 5, because if this is true, then it was going to keep 5, otherwise it's going to filter everything out, right? So that's a trick. Okay. All right, since you guys are liking filter a little bit, I'm going to give you a little different challenge, okay, if you're ready for it. Filter out, let's say, let's keep odds. Okay, it is a harder one, but all you have to do is, all you have to figure out, if I pass n, I want to keep all the odd numbers, right? How do you know? So in this case, you have what? I'm gonna, this is the array, right? So I'm gonna keep 1, not keep 2, keep 3, not keep 6, then 7, 9, 3, 5, 5, and 5. All right. So let's build a function called keep odds, which means it's going to keep all the odd numbers and remove everything even. A hint would be, anyone know how to identify an odd, an even number? It's obviously related to math, but how can you tell if a number is an odd or even? If I gave you a number, you need to prove it mathematically that this number is odd or even. Any idea? Yep, divisible by 2. If I can divide that number by 2 without any remainder, it's an odd number. Even number. Otherwise, it's an odd number. So in order to do that, you can divide 2 numbers, for example, and you can do a little experiment, right? So if I console log, and this is how you usually do, break down your problem to smaller. If I have a number 4, for example, right? And if I divide it by 2, what do I get? I'm just gonna console, gonna comment out everything so it doesn't interfere. I would get 2. If I have a 3 and divide by 2, I would get 1.5, right? Yeah, I can use this to figure out, there's one method called isInteger. I think let me see. isInteger. Okay, hold on, let me check. Is I forgot if there is a method called isInteger. Hold on. Oh, number dot isInteger. Okay, you can use this method. And I'm going to give you the reference. So you can have a reference and you can figure out if you can use this or not. Okay. If it's an integer, which means it's an even number. If it's not an integer, it's an odd number. Okay. So you can use that to figure it out. Let's see. And then filter out anything that is even number, right? Another way to do it as well is if I have console.log, you can just find a remainder. So let's say if I have a 3 and if I divide by 2, instead of divide by 2, which gives you the fraction, you can get a remainder, right? So if I say this, it will give you a remainder back, which is 1. But if I do 2 by 2, I'm not going to get any remainder. I'm going to get 0. So you can use this as well to figure out if the number is odd or even. So you can use either that integer is integer, or you can use the remainder. So this is a remainder operator, right? Come on, trial and error. You'll get it. Trial and error. Try something, see what happens, right? That's all you can do. If it works, you know why it works. If you get an opposite result, you know you did something completely opposite, right? So software development is all about these kind of things, right? You may not get everything right away, but once you get it, it's like you can do anything in that field then, right? So like filtering out individual number or set of number is easy, but filtering it out using a formula, it's a little different, but it's the same thing also. Yeah, put it in the chat once you have the answer. Let me know where you're getting stuck so I can help you, right? So instead of giving you the answer, I can see what you're getting and why you're getting that, so we can understand that. Because there are a lot of things that in a React that you're going to be using these functions for, and they're very useful. Okay, so I'll give you one way, which is using the integer way, and then you can figure out for the using the remainder operator, right? So does that sound good, or do you want to still want to try? I don't want to give it away if you're still closer, you know what I'm saying? Okay, all right. So is integer. So basically what we'll do is let me okay. So keep 5, right? What I want to do is take every number and I want to divide by 2, right? If I get a number with floating point, which is 1.2 or something, I know that that's an odd number, right? But if I don't get it, that's an even number. So if I say number dot is integer, is integer. If it's an integer, then it's the even number. Okay. So, oh, I should be keep odd, right? So if I use this, I'm going to get the opposite result than I really want, which means it's going to keep all the even numbers. Okay. What I want is not integer. So all I have to do is put not in front of it. This reverses. Anytime you put a not in front of it, it reverses it. So it filters out everything that is even and then gives me all the odds. And this gives me all the odds, right? Yeah, this was a little difficult. I think you guys were a little close, but yeah. So I'll always try out manually, right? So if I just do, let's say, console log 5, let's say if I just take this, and if I do 5, right? Sorry, if I take the whole thing. And if I, sorry, not that. And I'll just do keep odds. If I pass 5, is it going to give me true or false? Keep odds. Well, I defined twice. Is it going to give me true or false? It gives me true, which means for odd number, it's true. If I pass 4, it's false. So I can test this function individually without putting in the filter, and I would know that for all the even numbers, it's failing, right? Which means it's passing for all the odd numbers. So this is the behavior I want, right? Okay, last one, okay, which is something called reduce. This is very interesting one. And then I'm going to give you a really interesting example. So we looked at map. So what map does, it takes an array 3 and it transforms, right, to something else, 2, 4, and 6, right? For example, filter takes an array and it reduces it, right? Or it filters the value. So I may get something like this, right? Reduce takes the array and it reduces something to single value, not even an array. It reduces to a single value. So this is reduce is used for example, if I want a sum of all the elements in the array, let's say if I want to add all the elements, right? Usually how you add all the values is you would need, what you need is you need a running sum. So if I want to add all the values, right, I would need a total, right? Initially it will be 0. Then I would say add 1 to this total, right? So then total becomes 1. then add 2 to the total. So then total become 1 plus 2, which is 3. Then I would say add 3 to the total. So 3 becomes 6 now, right? So if I want to summarize the total, I can say total plus value, right? Can I say that, right? Ultimately, this is the formula. I'm going to have a total, running total, and then I'm going to add each value to it. And this would give me the full sum of all the values. Okay. So using that fundamentals, I can say nums dot reduce, and I can pass this total function. So I'm going to call it let sum add all. Let's call it add all equal to. There is a total, and there is a value. Okay. And then the sum is going to be total plus value. It's pretty simple. Okay. And then all I have to do is pass this in here. Okay. And let sum equal to this. And if I console log the sum, I should get the sum of all the values, which is 66. If you manually do this, it will come to 66. Okay. This is pretty simple. You get, as I said, have some sort of running total. It's usually start with 0 and then it adds a value every time. It keeps the total, so basically it returns total plus value. At the end of it, you'll get the full value. Okay. So in the mapping, we are mapping number to number. In the filter, we are saying, should this be filter or not, right? So we are passing true or false. In this one, we are passing the sum. So it will give you a final number. See, it gives you a number. It doesn't give you an array anymore because it's a reduce function. It reduces something to a one number. And the objective of reducer is typically, add them all, right? You can subtract them all as well, but it's the same thing in a way. Okay. Any questions? Let's try this out. I'm gonna give this to you, and you can try this out. So in a way, if you had to nutshell this, right? In a way, this callback function is nothing but what you do with each value, right? If you think of that way, what you do with each value, because that's the decision you need to make. In the map, you are doubling each value, or finding a root of each value, whatever you're trying to do, right? But you're operating on each value, which is the same thing. Filter, also you're operating this in each value. You're just deciding whether you want to keep this or not. That's it. In this case, you're also operating each value, but then you have a running total, right? Where you are saying, keep this, add this value to the total, all right? So the total keep increasing every time. This is actually very so useful that you can do a lot more with this. I don't want to confuse you by giving you a very complex example. This is probably the most simplest example, but you can see in this 3 lines, I can add all the numbers, which is pretty cool, right? I don't have to build quite complex functionality to add all the numbers. Yep, yep. I mean, the first number is total. You can actually call it like T and whatever you want to do, right? T and N. Remember, it doesn't matter the name of the variable, but I gave you like total and value, so it kind of gives you a clean idea. But ultimately, N is nothing but each of these element, and T is your running total that it keeps track of. Yeah, it's already built in JavaScript, this concept. And I'm doing everything so that it works towards your doing the React, basically. Okay. All right, cool. Any last question before we end? I'll probably give you some homework on this one. I haven't decided exactly what it's going to be, but it will be something similar to what we've done today, right? So make sure that you go in and you know, finish all the prior homework as well. Yeah, and usually it's a simple. It should not take more than like half hour. All right. Yeah, I think I'm really proud. You guys are really getting it. I was giving you some of the hard examples, right? So it will tickle your mind, right? But I didn't want to frustrate you as well at the same time, because when people get frustrated, they shut off and then they don't learn, right? So I want you to give you, easier example, but at least somewhat challenging. So don't worry if you can't get everything, but I think you got the concept on this one, right? Also, I think it's also memorization, right? Ultimately, if you do same thing over and over, it kind of gets in the memory, right? I call it this concept called working in somebody else's kitchen, right? So if I work in my kitchen, I know where the sugar is, where the spices are, where the all of this stuff are, right? So if you came to my house and if you see me smoothly bringing all these stuff out from the fridge and making an omelet, you will be very impressed. How does he know where his things are located? Well, it's because it's my kitchen. But if I came to your kitchen, I would struggle because I have no idea what's going on inside, right? I have to discover. I have to open all the stuff, say, hey, maybe I'll find some, uh, sugar, or I need something else, right? I would find it, but it would take me some time. But after 5-6 times, if I make omelet, I would know where things are, right? So just because you see me doing this smoothly doesn't necessarily mean that, I've always done this smoothly. I had my own struggle when I started, right? I know this because I do this every day at my job as well. So I don't even have to remember things, right? Sometimes I may forget a few things, but because of that. And, so since you're at that stage, I said, practice more, make some omelets of yours, right? And once you make those, you will know where the things are located, right? And then you can focus on building the omelet. Right now, you are actually struggling where things are because you're struggling with syntax, the functions are new for you and all that stuff, right? Ultimately, all you have to focus on this function. That's it, right? because all of these will be in your head. So cool. All right. I'll see you guys next week. So have a good weekend and the rest of the week. Bye.